What I'm going to do is show you how to make a jig to hold a piece of shaft material so that you can cut keyways in the side of the shaft. This is one that I've made before. It's worked very well for me, and I'll show you, go through the steps of how I built this jig. Basically, you're going to need something that you can hold the jig to the lathe with. A piece of angle iron. This happens to be 2" by 3" 1/4" thick. Has a 1/2 inch hole in it. Drops on there like that. And of course a nut to hold it down when you want to make sure it stays in place. Piece of 1" by 1" angle, 1/4" thick. What we're going to do is cut a flat along this edge so when it sits against the piece of angle iron it will be true. And then you're going to need a piece of shaft. I use 1" shaft material. This is going to be chucked in the lathe, and then the jig will be positioned against it so we can make sure it's true on the center line of the lathe. And when we cut our keyways, they're going to be straight and true. Again, this is what my jig looks like. It's welded on the end here, on both ends, and it's welded with a couple of plug welds against that flat that we will cut on this. Do not weld along here or along here, because that will cause this angle iron to slightly move when the weld shrinks. So basically that's what it looks like. It works very well, and I'll show you how to use it, how to build it, and then how to use it. Now mount a end mill in your chuck, and you can feed it in there. Basically what you're going to do is machine a flat on here that's 45 degrees from these two angles. And we're going to change to another operation. Okay, we've got a piece of 1" shaft mounted in the chuck, and on the live center we have our piece of angle iron, same piece that we used, or you can use a shorter one, and a piece of angle iron that we've machined a flat on. Of course this doesn't have a flat on it, but you know what I mean. Put this up against here like this and bring it in, and the flat will make it parallel with the side of this. Tighten this bolt up. Make sure it's nice and snug, and then put a couple clamps on it to hold it. Of course you'll have a couple of holes drilled in here for plug welds. Put your clamps on, nice and snug. And then you can loosen everything up. And you keep this all together, you remove it out of the lathe, and you're going to weld the plug welds and weld on the end here. Weld the end pieces first and then the plug welds, and that way the angle iron won't tip one way or another. Do not weld in along here, because that will shrink and cause the angle iron to move, and you don't want it to move. You want to stay on the same plane that it is. This is the one that I made before. It's served me very well. Like I say, it just drops on there, your shaft sits in there, you get it all lined up and you're ready to go. When you're done, you'll be able to cut keyways in a shaft like that. They're nice and true, same depth from one end to the other, and they're not twisted anyway because you've lined it all up before you started. To line up the shaft so that you're cutting the same depth across the front of it or along the side of it, you clamp your shaft in the little jig, and the jig is not tightened down right now. It just slides back and forth in the compound feed. But roll it in towards the face of the chuck and just set it so it's sitting straight across both sides of the chuck there, nice and flat. And then you tighten your nut up here. And then all you can do is you slide it in and out so that you get to the point where you want to cut the keyway in it. It clamps it in place, it's not going to go anywhere, and it'll cut a nice straight from one end to the other. It'll be the same depth. After you get your shaft set up in the jig, put a 3/16 end mill into your lathe, run it about 460 RPM, and just feed it with the cross feed. Bring it up there. Another 10 thousandths. Another 10 thousandths. Slowly turn your cross feed in, making a cut into the shaft. Another 10 thousandths in. When you want to check the depth on it, back it away. Take your digital calipers and go into it and measure across like that. That shows you the depth of your cut. I've got about another 5 thousandths to go on it. Another thing you can do is you put your keyway in there and measure the same way. You want to put your keyway in about halfway through. Just needs a little shortcut on it and it'll be done. There's a little tester that I made, just a same size piece of tubing or collar that I want to use. Put the nice and tight, and the keyway moves back and forth in there. You're all done.